One of the guys I learned from, Mark Ripito, he had this 92-year-old woman that he had known since he was a kid. She kept falling. And he's like, God damn it, you're going to come to my gym and we're going to fix this. And he started out with holding her hand, having her get up out of a chair, sit back in the chair, get up out of the chair, 3 sets of 5. 6 months later, this woman was doing rack pull deadlifts with like 45 pounds, and she put the walker back in the closet. He handed her her life back at 92 years old with strength training.
There are no absolutes in training. There is only why, based off of the best science at the time. That was what Arnold did. That was what Stallone did. The fitness industry plays to the ignorance of the people. We coach everyone to a single set to momentary muscular failure with precision technique.
How do I know if I'm overtraining?
The simplest answer is that you're not making progress anymore. Training is a process by which you have a stressor, and in the context of weight training, the load on the bar, the machine or whatever, the time under load, the time it takes you to do it, you have the repetitions, and you induce that stressor on the human organism. Now, if this stress is sufficiently stressful, meaning the body thinks this stress will kill it, the set will kill it, it will go whole shit, and it will start marshaling the adaptation required. And then off of that, when you come back, you will see an improvement in performance because you have adapted to it. If you think of like the sun, you sit out in the sun, and presuming that it is sufficiently stressful, you will then start to develop a tan or a darker pigment to your skin. Now this gets into a thing we talk about at the gym where you can overshoot it the first times, and we get into like a trauma stage where you have, that's where injuries come in, or like in the suntan analogy, a sunburn. But so the simplest way to know you're overtrained is if you cease to make progress. That being said, usually ceasing to make progress only comes after a long bout of overtraining. Your body is highly adaptive, and there are lots of mechanisms it has to improve performance. So, do you feel like you want to train that day? If you wake up and you're normally excited to train, I just don't feel like it. Now, there's a fine line there of discipline. You still got to go do your training. But then once you get good enough at trusting yourself that I don't want to train that day, thing can be a signal that I need just a little bit more rest. Energy throughout the day. For young guys like you, if all of a sudden I wake up and I don't have a morning erection, that's a sign that I'm overtrained, I'm exhausted, my test is down. A general loss of it's like, I just don't feel as excited about life as I normally do. These are all signs that, and the thing is, it doesn't necessarily mean overtraining, it means you need rest. But resting is a direct, I need to rest because I'm overtrained. And it could be because your body can't differentiate between the stress of training. And it can, but in the micro, your body can, the squat, the trap bar deadlifts we just did to failure, your legs, your hips, your back are going to go, I was shaking. I thought it was going to break. I thought it was going to fold. I lost balance. I need to grow more tissue there, thicken up the connective tissue, stiffen that up, and thicken the bone. So that will happen, but that requires rest to do that. And so say you have that, and then so you get into a fight with your manager or your parents or something, all of that adds stress. And so your body's need of rest may not mean that you're necessarily overtraining, but you are overstressed. And it will be very hard to do productive training, or you're on borrowed time, should I say, if you are training in a hyper-stressed environment. And again, that doesn't mean that when you get rough patches, you stop training, but being more cognizant. Like I was just listening to a Dr. McGuff. He wrote the book Body by Science. He was talking about working in the ER during COVID, and how he had to do a 6-way split. He's in his 50s, and so he would go one exercise for one set every other day. Anything more than that, he's like, my workouts for 6 minutes. Anything more than that would overtrain him, which would immunosuppress him and risk him getting sick or whatever. So he's like, normally, does that amount of stress bother me? No, I can handle my full training, 2 to 3 full body workouts, or a full body workout every 4 to 7 days, not a problem. But because of all the external gym, outside of the gym stress, I needed less in the gym stimulus. So the short answer is if you're no longer making progress, you are for surely overtrained. More nuanced answer is that there is a window in which you will still be able to show progress and make progress in a state of overtraining before it catches up to you. And the first initial signs that I'm overtraining can be general fatigue. Definitely, like, if you normally enjoy your training and learning to trust yourself, but like that, like, if you're not the guy who struggles with motivation and all of a sudden one day, it's like, I just would rather, put bamboo spikes in my fucking fingernails than go to the gym, you're probably overtrained. And this is another thing, is that everything in training is a give and take. For a beginner, we never assume they're overtrained because this is so new, their ability to judge that, they have no experience. So we may even push them because building that habit is more important. Once you migrate out of the beginner and become a late intermediate or a more advanced lifter, it's actually better to err on this side of I need more rest, because you're able to induce such stress onto your body and such fatigue that if you go in, it's never going to hurt you to take an extra day rest. After the novice and early intermediate phase, it's never an extra day of rest that never hurts you, ever. And so, fair to err, and I hope that answers the question. But yeah, so the initial fatigue, lack of typical biochemical functions like morning erections, general malaise, tiredness, that all can be signs of overtraining. And when you're but as a beginner, you got to learn how to feel that apart. As you progress, don't ever be afraid to rest, because it's never going to hurt you.
Let's say I am putting on 100 pounds on the cable machine.
Yes.
And I am an expert at everything machines. I go and I try to deadlift or bench press weight or do the same exercise that I do on a machine with a dumbbell or with some free weight, and it's not working. What's going on? Why am I failing? What's the problem with machines?
Okay, so this is the thing, is there's no right or wrong, there's only why. Machines are not inherently bad. The thing with a machine, I actually have a client that this is how I got him. He was doing very similar training to what I do now, but he was doing it at a studio that was all machines and they would run you through a total body circuit. And then he was on vacation and he did a dumbbell squat, goblet squat, like 35 pounds or 20 pounds on each side. And he was crippled the next day. He could barely move on his vacation. He's like, I was doing like 500 pounds on a MedX leg press. How am I so not adapted to this? And it is so, you have two functions, muscular coding functions. You have intermuscular coordination, which is the ability of the body to organize the muscles in a coordinated movement pattern. A squat, a bench, a baseball swing, a punch, a kick, running, your gait. These are the ability of the body to effectively code the appropriate motor units to coordinate those muscles together to make whatever movement you're trying to have happen. Then you have intramuscular coordination. That is the ability to code into high threshold motor units in the muscle. Machines almost exclusively train intramuscular coordination. There's no balance component. There's no even on a leg press, your core, like say a leg press and a squat, there's always been this debate. And the squat has the bar on your back, so your upper back has to work. You have to tie in those deep thoracic stabilizers with the paraspinals, the lower erectors, with the core, so that it can then transmit the force from gravity acting on the barbell through your rigid torso down to your hips and knees, and then back up. And you have to coordinate that, keep your knees in the right position, and then the whole organism works as one. So what you get with that is you get high level of neural training as well, increased thickness in your myelin sheaths. It's a huge component. And actually the first gains when you do barbell or dumbbell training are actually neural adaptation gains of your body, increasing its ability to call those muscles in and coordinate them effectively and quickly, the increased thickness of your myelin sheath. It's actually not very much muscle tissue because the skill component is so quick. With machines, that is almost non-existent. there is an argument. Now, this is where hypertrophy becomes something that is complex, that we don't fully all the way understand. Because by that logic, machines would produce the biggest, strongest people in the world. They don't. The biggest, strongest people in the world are strongmen, powerlifters. I mean, people love to say bodybuilders, but they're not. It's just, there's a great picture of Jay Cutler at a gym with like regular gym bros, and he looks huge. And then there's him standing between Eddie Hall and Brian Shaw, the number 1 and 2 world's strongest man. He looks like a tiny person. He looks like a child. So the biggest, strongest people in the world almost exclusively train with free weights. Now, people would argue they're fatter. If you put Brian Shaw at 450, take him down to Jay Cutler's body fat, he still noticed quite a bit. He carries way more muscle. Now, granted, he's taller and blah, blah, blah. You look at the biggest bodybuilder to ever step on stage, height, it was Ronnie Coleman. Go Google, go YouTube, and treat yourself if you have not. Treat yourself to a Ronnie Coleman compilation video. You will leave whatever you're doing right now and go right to the gym and yell, yeah, buddy, lightweight, and you will put way too much weight on a squat. And remember, he built the biggest, arguably the most impressive physique in the history of humanity, and it was mostly with free weights. His predecessor, Dorian Yates, the previous biggest physique in history, who also does single set training like we do here, he didn't avoid machines, and neither did Ronnie. Again, machines can be a nice accessory, but again, you look at a lot of Dorian was incline barbell pressing 450. He was bent over rowing 500 pounds. He was rep deadlifting in the mid 500 pounds. He was curling 100 pound dumbbells. He was flying 120, 130. He was wickedly strong. So he used machines to accentuate, but the foundation of his program was always free weight. And so like from a purely motor unit recruitment and what creates mechanical tension and exhaustion, you would think machines would be superior, but they're just not. Free weights tend to produce, again, you can still make great progress on machines. So I don't think I'm saying if all you have access to is machines. And in many cases, the thing we're describing that makes machines not carry over to free weights is what makes them a good choice if you don't have access to expert coaching. One of my favorite quotes is by Mark Rippetoe, and he says, barbell training is so obviously superior to any other machine or other form of training, but the lack of high quality instructors and ability to learn it makes it almost so dangerous it's not worth trying. I'm paraphrasing. But the point is that the lack of people that actually know how to teach effective barbell and dumbbell training is so few that, yeah, I wouldn't do it if I didn't have access to a coach. I mean, all my I didn't get hardly hurt fighting. I did have an ACL tear, but like my disc stuff, all of that all comes from lifting weights wrong because I didn't have a coach. I was trying out the stuff that I learned, and rehabbing it also is how I learned. So like, if you have no access to coaches, like there is a valid argument to said, stick with machines. But that being said, find a coach and learn how to train with free weights will be a superior stimulus. But the reason that the machines don't carry over is the neural component of the training is a lot less integrated with the machine than a free weight because the stabilization requirements are a lot less. The coordination of the whole body to make the movement happen is a lot less.
I had always thought that dumbbells were less exact, but that inexactitude is exactly what you want because of the stabilization.
Yep, and once you get good at them, so like I showed you the video on Tuesday of me doing 70 seated for like a 5 or 6 second tempo each way, and it looks like it's on pins. I can stabilize that, and the thing is that if you get really good with free weights, everywhere has free weights, hotel gyms, every gym has barbells and dumbbells. They may not all have machines, and you'll get to where you can control them like a machine. And then all of the benefits of the machine kind of go away. Because if I have a free weight, I can move that thing straight as an arrow, perfect stabilization, and I'm getting all these benefits I don't have to think of. And again, machines we have lots of machines in my gym. We may have more machines now than free weights, but the basis of our training and programming will always be the barbell and the dumbbell. And then we use the machines to accentuate them and things that they're just better for. Again, it's the right technique at the wrong time is not the right technique. And so trying to always use one implement or one thing of training on every variety of the population, just like, so if I want to thrash your hamstrings, we already, like say today, I said, oh, he needs a little more hamstring work. You already deadlifted, just huge hamstrings. We could go do some hamstring curls on a machine, which would allow us to put a direct focus on the hamstring and nothing else, and take that to failure and exhaust all those high threshold motor units in the hamstring. Or I could have you do the good morning machine, or I could have you do an RDL. Good morning machine and the RDL have your your spinal erectors involved, your core involved, your upper back involved, your lats, your glutes, your it's so we know with you being new to training, we have to get a high intensity of work, but the recovery ability is still relatively low because this is new to you. So we don't want to overwhelm that. So if I'm looking to get a nice stressor, just like, his hamstrings aren't quite there, he needs a little bit more hamstrings. Today, we didn't get it with the deadlift. I'm going to pick the machine over it because it's going to allow me to get more work where I want it with less systemic fatigue. And that is actually the benefit of machines, is you get more precise work with less systemic fatigue. But, as we know, the systemic fatigue involved with complex exercises, barbells and dumbbells, tends to bring along a bunch of the secondary and tertiary mechanisms of hypertrophy that you just don't get with machines. With machines, you get the primary. So it's kind of like getting a meal, where with machines, you get the steak. The primary driver of muscle hypertrophy is mechanical tension, the artificial slowing of the implement, and high threshold motor unit exhaustion failure, or approximating failure to where the movement pattern breaks apart. We don't now know if there's that big of a difference between like 1 or 2 reps shy or all the way to failure. But since we can only be sure we did it, we go to failure. So you get that with machines. Now, secondary mechanisms are metabolic stress, the metabolites produced from hard work. There's a ton more of that if I have you do RDLs for 10 to 12 reps, especially tempoed.
What's an RDL again?
You hold the dumbbell, you hold the barbell or dumbbell in your hand, and then you fold over at your hip, you hinge at your hip, and it trains your hamstrings. That's going to produce a ton more cardiovascular response, metabolite production. You're also going to get some systemic work of the lats. You're going to get some core work. You're just going to get a bunch more systemic fatigue, which is a secondary mechanism of muscle hypertrophy, metabolic stress. You're also going to get the time under load is going to take longer because the load is spread over more of the body. So you can get more time under load for the hamstring, which is a secondary or tertiary mechanism of muscle hypertrophy. So you're getting like, with free weights, you're kind of getting the steak with the potato and the broccoli. And then you throw the machines in and you get the dessert. But if you do just machines, like just getting the steak, I'm getting the primary driver, without all of these other things. And then that gets to the point, I've never met a person outside of a bodybuilder, but I've never had a person come to me and say, hey, I just want to grow muscle and I care nothing about how that muscle translates to my life outside of the gym. So if I can grow you muscles, and I can also make it so that you have better intermuscular coordination from when you play with your kids, you move stuff around the house, you go jog with the dog, you play racquetball, as you live your life becomes easier, then that's what I want. Because I've never had someone come in and say, I just care about building muscles and I'm comfortable getting neurologically less efficient. Like, here's a trick. I've trained 13 yoga instructors, 14 yoga instructors now. Every one of them will tell you the best thing they did for their yoga was strength training. If that was done with machines only, it would not carry over the same. They would not go, oh my God, this changed my yoga practice. People that couldn't do headstands, handstands, suddenly banging them out. Because we made them stronger and built muscle there, and the way that we do it matters.
Is soreness an indicator of how hard you worked / how much you need to recover?
How much you need to recover, maybe. If you're really sore, you may need more recovery. If you're walking around sore longer, you absolutely may need recovery. Again, as a beginner, again, it depends too also. If it's in a more advanced or intermediate lifter, then absolutely, if out of nowhere, I make myself just crippled sore, then that means I'm gonna need more rest. For everyone, soreness is soreness is a inflammatory response. So we know that the eccentric part of the movement is what tends to break down the cross bridges of the Z lines between the actin and myosin more. These are the protein filaments that cause muscle contraction. The inflammatory response from that tends to be what causes soreness. The breaking down of those lines and then the inflammatory response to it tends to be what is muscle soreness, what causes it, or the greatest driver of it. Novelty, something being new, and then an amount of eccentric loading you are previously unadapted to. So if that's all soreness is, an inflammatory response to something you're unadapted to, would it make sense that there might be, especially just starting out, some every workout? Well, sure. But once you get used to it, and as long as you're not jumping around exercises too much too soon all the time, it should be minimal. Now, if there's zero, you have zero, zero, zero. I take this back because I have a client that I told her soreness didn't matter, and she took that very literally, and she has never been sore since I trained her. Back to our psychosocial talk last time. She has never been sore, not one time after the first, and I've been training her for 2.5 years, and this girl weighs 125, and she deadlifts well over 200 pounds. She's never been sore. Comes back, I'm like, you sore? Nope, because I told her soreness did not matter. It was nothing. She goes, why do you say it like that? You told me soreness doesn't matter and it doesn't mean anything. So why would I be sore if it doesn't mean anything? And in 2.5 years, 3 years now, she's never been sore. So generally, but that being said, generally, if you are training hard, a low level of soreness may or may not be there. It's one of those things like, it should get there occasionally, but it's not a meaningful driver. But you will occasionally get sore. But no, it's nothing that you should strive for or go, because I was sore, I need to do more of that, or it was good. It's just kind of, it's like a mother-in-law. It's just there. And if it's there, fine. If it's not, but no, it's not a driver. It's just a inflammatory response to a level of eccentric loading you were previously unadapted to, or a response to something being novel, which generally, if it's new, has a level of eccentric loading you're adapted to.
And eccentric is
the lowering of the muscle. Yeah. Okay. So again, it's not anything that we should be concerned of. That being said, occasionally you'll have it.
How much do you know about sarcopenia? What is it? How do people avoid it?
So sarcopenia and the thing is, people like to say like they got sarcopenia. Sarcopenia is a natural aging process. Like sarcopenia, it will be all of us. If you don't fight, and it will happen even if you fight it, we will all have sarcopenia to some degree. It is the natural shedding of muscle tissue. So everything is a coin. There's two sides. So muscle tissue is the greatest quality of life thing you have that predicts quality of life past 60. The reason why muscle tissue is so profoundly impactful for somebody who's trying to lose weight is because it's living tissue. It's costly to the body. So as you're getting older, your body's ability to synthesize and use resources and move around all that, it's like, how can we do this less? So it's the natural, as you get old enough, your body will naturally shed muscle tissue because the muscle tissue makes the heart work longer. So it's just costly on the body. So your body naturally will shed the muscle tissue, and that's why we have to fight against it to keep it, because most of us don't have the muscle tissue that people did years ago. And now that we know what we know about what muscle tissue does for your quality of life, we're like, it may be slightly harder on your heart, but it also comes like training for the muscle and building muscle has a cardiovascular component to it that kind of it levels itself out. But if you think about it, if you now, when people built muscle in gyms, if you were just born a big guy back in the, Cro-Magnon era, or, even 200, 300, 400 years ago, you're a bigger guy. That's just more work on your heart. Your body is naturally, as you get older, as the heart gets more tired, kind of make you smaller. So like my father was, up until probably about 5 years ago, was like 330, 350 pounds his whole life. Walks around now at 270. He doesn't eat any differently. Now, it's not a good 270. It's not like he lost the weight, right? His arms are thin, his legs are thin, his belly is still huge, but his body naturally started shedding muscle tissue to get his weight down. Gravity acting on the body, the lighter you weigh, the less stress that is on your joints, the less cardiovascular work that is.
Yeah.
But now with what we know, the benefits of keeping the muscle and how you build it, you can keep the cardiovascular system on par so that you kind of mitigate the negative parts of having a little bit of extra muscle and you reap only the benefits of it. So that's what sarcopenia is, the natural shedding of muscle tissue as you get older with the body that everyone will deal with. And if you don't act, and it doesn't matter what you do at some age, it will win. It does win, but you're fighting to hold on to everything again.
You fight that by doing strength training.
Yep. Well, it's the only thing you can fight the body is by doing strength training. You can jog all you want and you'll actually help it. You do lots of cardiovascular training, lots of zone 2, shall we say, low intensity, steady state cardiovascular training, that you will help enhance sarcopenia when you get older.
Whoa.
You're just creating more of an energy demand on the body, and then you're not giving it a reason to keep the muscle tissue. So that's when people say, does cardio kill muscle gains? Not if you're strength training too. But if you do lots of cardio and your body's already trying to shed muscle tissue, you've just enhanced the calorie needs it has. So say you go for a 4-mile run, you're a 65-year-old woman, you go for a 4 or 5 mile bike ride, you just burn 350 to 700 calories extra. And if you're not giving your body a need to keep the muscle tissue, it's like, well, what are we keeping this for? We can burn off some of this muscle tissue. We'll require less calories a day to stay alive, which is easier on the body. And then we don't have to carry this shit around, and we'll save our body fat, which we know is not the best situation, but it's simple. Like muscle, we didn't evolve. People that think that we evolved to have big muscles are out of their mind. Like muscle is metabolically costed.
In this hypothetical example, I'm a regular person. I don't go to the gym.
Okay.
I'm just living a regular life. I'm not working out.
Oh, you're a degenerate.
I'm a degenerate. I appreciate the label. Thank you for labeling that. That's important in Zen as well. My question is, why get strong? Why do strength training? Like in this hypothetical example, my life is going perfectly well without even touching dumbbells, even touching weight. It hurts, it's expensive. I've got to do it for, 14 minutes every workout. Why do it? Like, why do people do strength training to begin with?
The assumption there that I would say wrong is that your life is about you. This gets to a first principles look at what is human life about. If your life is merely about you and your sole happiness and what makes you happy, then I have no good argument for you for why you should strength train. If you're 100%, I would question the individual that says, I'm not terribly physically capable, I'm not 100% happy with myself. I would question if that's honest or they're getting sold some bullshit from modern society that they shouldn't. But the premise comes is that your life is about you and your life is not about you. Your life is about what service you can be to those around you, how you can make your family and your local community's life better, how you can be of use to those around you. That's what we dig down, like that's it. I would argue that one of the reasons we're in the fucked state of a society now is too many people think their life is about them and not how can I be of use to others. So when the old lady falls, you can pick her up and carry her to the car and take her to the hospital, or she needs her refrigerator moved, or your cousin needs to move something and they don't make much money, so you can go help them move it. So that you're also robust and healthy later and longer into life, so that your wife doesn't have to wheel you around, so that you can play with your kids longer. Like again, if it's just you and your immediate happiness, I have no good argument for strength training or physical activity at all, especially if you despise it. But then I would question your views on what the meaning of life is to begin with. Because you should care about being around long, able to play with your kids or your brother or sister's kids, or being of use around the people that you care about long into your life. You should care about not being a burden on society at large and leaving the world a little bit better than you found it. And if you don't strength train and entropy takes its natural course, by the time you're 60 or 70, you're going to be of less use than you would be if you had strength trained, especially correctly. And to me, that's just a non-negotiable.
Yeah.
So my argument would be, you should care about being able to be of use as long into your life as possible. And then when you get way in those 70, 80, 90-year-olds, like one of the guys I learned from Mark Ripito, he had this 92-year-old woman that he had known since he was a kid. She kept falling. And he's like, God damn it, you're going to come to my gym and we're going to fix this. And he started out with holding her hand, having her get up out of a chair, sit back in the chair, get up out of the chair, 3 sets of 5. 6 months later, this woman was doing rack pull deadlifts with like 45 pounds, and she put the walker back in the closet. He handed her her life back at 92 years old with strength training. You should care about being 92 and still able to walk yourself around, not being dependent on others, not being a burden on your children, your spouse, or the community at large. You should care about being of use as long as possible. And if you do, which you should, the most effective way to do that and extend life Greatest predictor of quality of life after the age of 60 is lean muscle mass. So the more lean muscle you have, the more cardiovascular fit you're going to be, the better your joints and connective tissue are, the better you're going to be able to produce force. So you're going to be able to pick up and move things and move yourself. So that's why. Back to the original thing. I think the fundamental question there is, what is your worldview? What do you think the purpose of life is? And if it is solely your happiness, I would question the person. One of our presidents, I think, said, it is a shame for a man to come and live and never know the extent of his physical capabilities. But I would question if you're truly content. You're like, I really am 100% happy with myself and my appearance and my state of life. I would question that if you said that you just don't ever want to. But if it is, you're 100% happy, your life is perfect, it's everything you want, and you don't strength train, I have no argument for you at all. But if you think that life is about how can I contribute to the greater good and how can I be of service as long as possible, and above being service, never be a burden to others or society at large, then I think that that's the argument for strength training, because it's the greatest intervention we have for the quality of life for older individuals. And just, you think about in anything, a virus, I want to make it strong. It's the greatest intervention for any organism, the enhancement of any organism. And we are an organism, so if you care about being service and being able to do good long into your life, then you should care about strength training, because it's the greatest intervention that we have to increase the potency of you as an organism.